there's a physics, and what they're showing me is the applied science, right? So it's applied metaphysical science. And so there's very much an if then statement with it. When we do these exercises or these techniques, there is a result, and that learning how to use these things, all humans have the ability for this because we are built intrinsically. We have these things within us. We have our third eye, we have chakras, we have a light body, and all of these things are a part of us. We're all born like that. It's not because I'm special. Like I might have learned it sooner and I'm here to be a trailblazer or a way shower, but everyone has this within them. And once we learn how to wake it up and access it, it is a very awesome, enriching thing that helps us develop purpose, manifest our reality, all these awesome parts of it.
Welcome to the Holomovement Awaken Your Purpose Podcast, where we interview incredible people that are living and breathing their purpose. And you can too. If you would like to support this programming, drop us a like or leave us a review. Now let's dive in.
Hello, I'm Sharon Clark, a LightNet and Holomovement Purpose Lab collaborator, and my purpose is to guide cancer experiencers to regain their clarity, see possibility, and reclaim their power during their cancer experience. And today, I'm incredibly lucky to be joined by Jerome Martin. Jerome is an ET contactee, a metaphysical practitioner, and the founder of the Light Body Bootcamp. Through classes, workshops, and online training, Jerome guides people through practical methods for strengthening their light body, deepening their higher self connection, and cultivating intuitive abilities resulting in personal transformation, energetic mastery, and conscious evolution. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jerome. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Sharon.
So, Jerome, let's start off with the question everybody wants to know. What is your purpose? What did you discover that to be?
All right. I discovered my purpose to be the development of the light body. And so I've spent a lot of time helping others develop their light body and develop the faculties, right? So these are your clairsenses, your connection to your higher self, the ability to move and journey within these higher realms. There is a whole science to it. A lot of people have been approaching it piece by piece, but this method is a holistic approach to this development.
Oh, that is amazing. And it sounds like it's a thorough approach as well. So was there a moment, or what was the moment in your life where it became clear that this was your purpose?
That's a great question. This came in through extraterrestrial contact. So I had a series of contact events, and in this experience, in the beginning, they seemed like what were weird dreams because I didn't understand what was happening. And I was brought into this space where these beings known as the Arcturians, they begin to connect to me and to develop my light body. So they brought me through a series of exercises that very quickly developed my ability to journey, move, how to communicate telepathically with these higher dimensional beings. And so they did this for quite some time. And basically, I was able to blueprint and recreate that experience and then share it with others.
Wow, that is incredible. So you had an ET contact. Can you explain what happened during your ET contact and how that went? What did it take you by surprise? What were you doing? What was happening in your life at that time?
Yes, it did catch me by surprise. At the time, I was a construction worker. And once again, my whole life changed after this moment. But I was a construction worker and I was a superintendent. I was building landfills. And so I was traveling the Midwest, moving earth, mass excavation with big equipment. And so one day this began on my lunch break. I was in my truck and I ate my lunch and then I closed my eyes. And when I opened my eyes, there were these 5 blue beings, and I didn't recognize them to be extraterrestrials. I thought they were blue silhouettes of light. Once again, I thought I was dreaming at first. And so these beings, they sort of reached and all touched me. And then I heard this strange noise that was like, wub, 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 wub. And the next thing you know, I see myself going up a tube of light into what I thought was a floating city. And they brought me to this place. And through these experiences, they taught me how to connect energetically, move my body, how to connect to other objects. And this went on for some time. And then eventually they showed me like, hey, you can do this for others. And so I spent the next several years bringing other people into this space to connect with these beings. And, a lot of this training isn't reliant upon the beings, but part of the advanced training is making contact with these higher dimensional beings, because a lot of what they teach is experiential. A lot of these higher dimensional abilities and aspects come from this direct communication, because they don't communicate with words like we do. They communicate telepathically. So they show you images and you have a sense of knowing and things like that. And so that only happens through that direct cognitive experience.
Exactly. That just sounds so fascinating. So I would take it that there's been more than one point of contact in your lifetime, correct?
Yeah, I've had multiple points of contact. That actually wasn't my first contact experience, but that
Okay.
was the first meaningful experience that actually had depth, body, and volume that helped me develop. I feel like the first couple were like grooming experiences where it had me believing in these things, something that I couldn't understand, but then it sort of allowed me to let this further experience sort of take holds. If you don't believe in something, it's hard to accept something as reality. And so my first two contact experiences, one of them, which is really notable, was I was driving to the desert, and I was driving from Illinois to Sedona, Arizona, and I was driving to New Mexico, and it was late at night, probably around 11 p.m. approximately. I'd only been driving for a couple hours in the dark, and over the top of the car shot what looked like a red shooting star, and I see it fly over the top of the car, and as I'm looking at it, it shoots and then it makes a right hand turn. And then when it shoots again, my eyes locked onto this red light. And when my eyes locked onto it, all I saw was this red beam. And I remember saying, that's weird. And then I heard echo back, that's weird. That's weird. That's weird. And I kept hearing this like loop. And then when the red light stopped, then the mountains were on the other side and the sun was almost coming up. And so knowing that when this happened, it was only a couple hours in, I was missing a large chunk of time. And so that experience I wrote off at the time as I must be driving for too long, or I must be tired, or I didn't equate it to that type of experience until later when I had regression hypnotherapy and I got those memories back of what happened when I was actually, taken aboard this craft, etc. That was the first one. Second one was in Sedona years later. I went on a UFO tour and this guy had night vision goggles and he's showing us these like ships up in the sky. And, at first I'm like, I'm a skeptic. Before I got into this as a profession, I got to see and understand and know these things. And so we got these night vision goggles and he's got these laser beams and he's like, okay, so these objects, they're UFOs, but let me explain why I think they're extraterrestrials, because they do something interesting. So he finds one, he's like, oh, there's one. And then he says, just like how I'm saying to you, can you power up or dim your lights for our friends? And then it gets real bright and then it gets dark and then it gets real bright and then it gets dark. I'm like, no way. I'm like, no way is this guy talking to a thing up in space that we can visibly see and it's responding. But then I'm like, we don't know what the secret space program has, or we don't know like how advanced technology is. You just point a laser beam at something. Maybe they have acoustic listening devices, or maybe they have some technology where, I'm trying to math it out, or in my mind, like physics, like how could this be happening? And then so,
like you say, disprove it on some level.
Yeah, and then he did it a few times where then there's another one, and then same thing, talking to this thing that's way over in the other part of the sky, and then it's flashing. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I don't understand how this is working, but then I sort of break off from the group and I see one up in the sky that no one's looking at. And this one was much larger than the others. It was like 3 times the size and it's moving across. And this time, without shining my laser at it and without even saying it out loud, just in my mind, I thought, can you power up or dim your lights? And then it gets real bright, gets real dark, and then it turns into a beam of light and it's gone. I'm like, okay, like there's no way that it heard my thoughts and responded, or like, this made me realize that this was like beyond what I'm thinking laser beams and sound listening devices, etc. And then I was like, there's no way that I couldn't math or physics that one with what happened. And then, so that was my real first contact, like, wow, this is real. Something's happening here. That was like beyond a reasonable doubt. And then, so those two experiences, I feel like paved the way for my later ones. And once again, the later experiences, I didn't even realize they were extraterrestrials. I thought it was a dream. Blue silhouettes of light don't seem like extraterrestrials. It seemed like a floating city in a dream. And then over time, the experiences from going back into the space, it started off as a dream state where it's like happening to me, where I wasn't in control, to like the observer. Then I would be in meditation and then boom, I'm in this space, and it was progressing. And then I could go there like at will on command, where it was a very conscious choice. And by that time, it was no longer a floating city with blue beings. They started coming into view. And this is why I think I was being groomed, where like they weren't showing themselves as they were because I might be afraid of it, or there wasn't that like relationship built yet. But then at a certain point, I look around and I'm like, this is obviously some sort of craft, and these are obviously beings, because I could see the large heads, large eyes, and there was like features, and I was like, wow, this is something's happening here. And then once I understood what was going on, then they were like, oh yeah, by the way, we're these advanced beings and we're here for humanity, and you actually chose to do this before you came here on this earth, like you chose to be here. And I was like, well, why me? I'm just a human. They're like, well, no, like your soul actually come from where we're from, and because I didn't understand that. I'm like, well, why me? I'm just this construction worker. Like, why? And then I didn't realize till much later, once I was facilitating, when someone else told me, like, hey, when we go up there, you look like them, not like you. And then I realized, they had a conversation with me that was saying that, yeah, we see you as once, and you chose to be here. And this is a contract that you signed before you came to Earth. And this is your purpose and your mission is to help people on this path of spiritual evolution. And we are just stewards of this consciousness technology and of these abilities, and it's now time for humanity to start this process of awakening.
So they're slowly integrating you into their world so that they don't overwhelm you and have you back out of the contract that you signed, right? They want to work with you so that you can bring these gifts and allow humanity to have their gifts come online and elevate consciousness, right?
Right. This is a really important conversation too, because people think that mass contact or ET contact is going to be a bunch of giant ships coming down where there's mass hysteria. And that's simply not the case. That disclosure is happening on an individual level. People that are awakening and are ready for it are already having these experiences. People have these experiences where they write them off as dreams, just as I did, because they don't understand them. These contact experiences are already happening, and consciousness is being evolved like on the back end or in the unconscious, subconscious mind. And then eventually people are starting to wake up. And these things are happening where some of us are able to have these direct contacts. And then for me, being able then to facilitate it for other people, I didn't realize that what they showed me when I first started, it was like this game where they had me connect, make myself float up and then move across some platforms. Then it was, move an object across the platforms, then move me and the object. I didn't realize this whole time they were training my light body to quantum entangle, to be able to move, to grab onto something. And then later they were like, yeah, now you can connect to another person and bring their consciousness up here to have this experience. And so I didn't realize that this was already being built within me. And I didn't realize that I could even do it until like, okay, try. And then I did it. And then these experiences, I'm able to start facilitating them for others. And that's how this whole journey started. Was I started bringing people up into these spaces. And then it turned into a much larger brushstroke of all of these techniques that people can learn to develop, because consciousness, there's a certain framework to it, right? So there is there's a physics, and what they're showing me is the applied science, right? So it's applied metaphysical science. And so there's very much an if-then statement with it. When we do these exercises or these techniques, there is a result. And that learning how to use these things, all humans have the ability for this, because we are built intrinsically. We have these things within us. We have our third eye, we have chakras, we have a light body, and all of these things are a part of us. We're all born like that. It's not because I'm special. Like, I might have learned it sooner and I'm here to be a trailblazer or a way shower, but everyone has this within them. And once we learn how to wake it up and access it, it is a very awesome, enriching thing that helps us develop purpose, manifest our reality, all these awesome parts of it.
Exactly. And so I think you made a good point earlier that ET contact is not about all these spaceships coming down. It's about people like yourself who have the capability to help the rest of us bring our intrinsic capabilities online, which is really incredible. So how did those closest to you react when you began the new direction of pursuing your purpose? Because this isn't, your average, I'm going to be a lawyer now, or I'm going to be a doctor now, or this was, something completely off the grid, let's say.
So everybody around me thought I was losing my mind because I was talking to ETs in my dreams and in my, meditation time. And they told me that I was losing my mind if I keep telling people that I'm talking to aliens in my head, that I'm going to end up in a mental institution. But, that manifested very quickly. The ETs, before they trained me and showed me how to develop the system, the first thing that they showed me was this, what seemed like at the time was a magical potion, right? And so they showed me this thing and they're like, here, you're going to make this and you're going to sell it on the internet and this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, I don't even know how to send the email, let alone start an internet company, right? And so
you just picked me up from a construction site, for goodness sakes.
Right. And so, but they showed me this thing and I followed them. They showed me what it looked like, the logo, all these different things, how to program this material. And this material was to activate the nervous system, activate the light body and make it stronger. That way it has the capacity. And so I did this. And of course I told my mom that I'm quitting my 100K salary construction job that I worked 10 years through 2 unions, youngest one in my field of 20 years, that I'm quitting that to make and sell potions that aliens showed me and sell them on the internet. She told me that I'm losing my mind and that I'm going crazy. But then very quickly manifested, and it turned into a 7-figure business on Amazon where we're making, we're doing over $1 million a year in sales. And so it became very profitable. And, it sounds crazy until what they show you turns into something, right? If I was homeless in an alley raving about aliens and all this different stuff, that might seem less tangible than it turning into a system. And so this is where that product was part of a system that gets your physical body ready to be able to tap into this higher consciousness. And so there's a bunch of parts of it, and it just kept going and going. And I've just been running with it and taking it as far as I can. I laugh because they said that, that you're going crazy, end up in a mental institution. And then fast forward, years later, I've been on Discovery Channel where ex-FBI Homeland Security had me hooked up to computers. I want to see what my brain's doing while I'm communicating with these beings. I get to speak at conferences. I get to be on, I get to do all sorts of cool things where I get to talk about and tell my story. And, some people might think it's crazy, but this is my reality. And a lot of people that are in this process of awakening are having similar experiences. They just don't understand them fully.
Yeah, because we haven't been trained and slowly integrated into it like you have. So you step by step, and so you could understand the full picture once they, started really developing you, whereas other people aren't, maybe it's not a good progression, or maybe they're getting too much all at once. And so therefore they're not understanding it, but it sounds like an amazing journey that you've been on. So tell us more about when you were hooked up to the computers with the FBI. What did the FBI, what was their purpose in all of this?
Yeah. So first of all, he was ex-FBI. So he was an ex-FBI interrogator, now a journalist on the show UFO Witness, which is on Discovery Plus.
Okay.
And on the show UFO Witness, people come and they tell their story. And these journalists, one of the guys, Ben Hansen, he's the one that I'm talking about. He's the skeptic, right? So he's like, I don't believe any of this. I'm going to try to prove you wrong. And on a bunch of episodes, he does some sort of experiment to see if the person's telling the truth. There's another woman that she had a story where she was pregnant a bunch of times, and then each time she was pregnant, then she had an abduction where they took the embryo, and then now she's not. She has ultrasounds before, after. He had her on the show where he had her hooked up to 3 different lie detector tests, and she passed all 3 of them while telling her story because it's her truth, right? So with me, what he did was he's like, okay, I don't believe any of this is real. It's like, I think you're making it up. So I'm going to test it, and I'm going to hook your brain up to EEG brainwave monitoring technology. So I'm going to see what your brainwaves are doing while you're connecting to these aliens and see what we can do here. He's like, and I'm gonna do it like a scientific method. I'm gonna take a baseline, I'm gonna hook you up, and I'm gonna see what your brain does while I ask you questions, so I can see what your brain does while you're answering questions, right? To see what happens when you're thinking. Then we're going to connect to your alien spaceship where you go up there. Usually I bring people up there, but he's like, well, no, I don't want to go up there. He's like, I want you to go, and I want to ask you questions while you're there because I want to see what your brain's doing while we're filming you. I'm like, okay. He's like, can you do that? I'm like, well, I never have. He's like, but you're confident that you can on TV in front of everybody? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Because I got the nudge that, yeah, go ahead. And so in this process, I just narrated what I did. They hooked me up. He got his baseline. Mind you, the baseline was the brainwaves were in around 80 or 90 hertz, which is the alpha beta range of brainwaves, which is what we're likely in now. When we're having a conscious conversation where we're active and concentrating, that's the range that we're typically in. Now, then I just described him. Okay, now I'm doing this. I'm going into this beam of light, this portal. It's taking me up. While this is happening, I had a pulse oximeter, which was measuring my heart rate and my blood and my oxygen. I had that hooked up, and then the monitor on my brain. And when I said, okay, I'm going through the portal, the blood pressure dropped. And it was like the device was beeping on my finger when I said, okay, I'm doing this. That was the first thing where he was like, okay, that's different. And then when I was up there, when I go up into the space, there's a bunch of different rooms and technologies up on this ship. And in one of the rooms, there's what I call looking glass technology. It's a large holographic screen. And on the screen, there's beings around, and I can ask them questions, and then they will just show me on the screen what the answer is. It's like they play it as a movie, right? And so I went up there and I told him, okay, I'm ready. And he asked a bunch of different questions. And one of the questions was, are the black triangles that we're seeing over Vegas, are those the Arcturians? And what I saw on the screen was a naval carrier ship with a fighter pilot taking off the ship. And so I was like, no, they're saying this is military. This isn't alien at all. And what's crazy is I'm going to do another interview about this later. They changed my story. They took what I said, and because I signed off on the rights that they own the material. They asked me a bunch of questions and then a bunch of follow-up questions. And then because they interviewed 3 other people on that show where they asked them questions about the triangles, and they're like, yes, they're the Arcturians. They showed me, no, it's military. But then in the interview afterwards, when I watched it, they asked me, are they the black triangles? And I said, no, they're military. And they cut to me saying, yes. So they changed what I said to fit their story.
Oh, that's not good.
That's not what I said, but I don't care because they showed that something's happening. Back to the story. So he asked me questions. I told him the answers. And when I came back, he was like, yeah, so I monitored this whole time. And the whole time when you were up in this space communicating with these beings, he's like, I don't know what was happening because I wasn't there, but I can see very clearly on the, he had a tablet. He's like, I can see very clearly that in that space, your brainwaves shifted from 80, 90 hertz, which are alpha and beta, into theta, which is around, I forget the hertz range, but I think it's like 30 to 14 hertz, something like that is what theta is. I should have the graph in front of me so I can give you an accurate number. But basically, he's like, I could see that the whole time your brain was in the same brainwave state as when you're sleeping or when you're dreaming, right? And that is how this connection even happens. All of psychic abilities happen, or multidimensional abilities happen through accessing altered states of consciousness, which is being able to shift on command for as long as you want to without falling asleep into these altered states, because that is the doorway and the portal. And so being able to do that is the key to all of this. And so that is how all of this happens and how we're able to access these other realms of consciousness. It's by opening that doorway. And so he was able to show that, yeah, something's happening here. I don't know how to describe it, but you passed my test, basically.
Excellent. And that's a lot of coaches and hypnotists and things that they will tell you that right before you go to sleep at night, and right after you wake up in the morning, and that's where the doorway is. So if you want to really access your subconscious mind and, I get rid of a belief that you no longer have or install a new belief, then just before you fall asleep, you're thinking about it in your mind and it's going into your subconscious. Or as soon as you wake up in the morning, you try and make that your first thought. So it's really, really interesting. Like you say, that is the portal and the doorway.
And what's awesome about that is learning how to control it like a switch, right? So this isn't something, and this is what takes psychic phenomena. Everyone is intrinsically psychic, like I said, but this is what takes psychic phenomena from a something that happens to you, where it's like, oh, this thing happened one time where I saw a vision or an image or got a download, to I can do this on command, right? And this is what turns you into facilitator level, where you can tap into it and tap others in on demand, on command. And this is what I teach, in the Light Body Bootcamp. The first thing that we learn is how to access these altered states, because everything that you're ever going to do, whether it's healing, being a psychic, a medium, any of the psychic phenomena, all requires you to be able to access those altered states, because it is your light body that's doing any of that. Everything that you do with your psychic abilities that's outside of your physical body is your light body. It's these other dimensional parts of yourself. And we learn how to turn it on, how to activate it, and then how to feed it, enrich it. So it builds like a battery. So you've got this charge.
Exactly. And they say that we flip in and out of altered states all day long, because we do become hypnotized. Sometimes you're driving down the road and all of a sudden you get to your destination, you don't know how you got there, or you're looking at a fire, or, you're staring at a computer screen and all of a sudden your mind blanks out. There are altered states that we slip into and out of. I think the ticket, or the trick, as you say, is to master it, is to become aware, stay present and become aware when you're going in and out of these states, and learn how to prolong them. This is
why television is called programs, right? Because when you're staring at the television and you're sort of zoning out and you get into that relaxed state, you unconsciously will access that. And there's a reason. So especially when you're driving too, I get my best downloads or manifest, or these different things happen when I'm driving, because, you sort of zone out and you go on autopilot. And that is the best way for me. Something about the movement allows me to pick up on things like an antenna. And the reason is, and this is another thing that I teach in the bootcamp, is it has to do with your eyes. There's a physiological trigger with the eyes when you're staring at a screen or looking through the window. There's a physiological trigger in your eyes that helps you access the altered states with your eyes open. This is an advanced technique. We learn how to do it with the eyes closed at first, but the eyes open, it's a natural part of our physiology, because believe it or not, your third eye is connected to your eyeballs through your optic nerve. When you learn how to put the right amount of tension on it and trigger those brainwave states, you can shift right into it. And so these are things that are built into us in our human nature. They're part of our body. And this is where, people will talk one way or another, but we're built like this. This is who we are. And accessing these things, humans are psychic by nature. Most people just have it turned off. It turns off from trauma, from contracts, from different things that are what I call distortion in the signal. Once you remove distortion, the signal comes back, and all this stuff starts happening. This is why anybody, whether you've been meditating for years or you're brand new, can access these things once you know how, because it's already within you.
And like you say, we all have these abilities. It's just a matter of turning them on. And I think from young people, we are programmed to shut off those abilities. We're programmed to not explore them. But
Yeah.
that's a whole different conversation.
Well,
So,
it is.
yeah, that could take us down a different rabbit hole. So how important was the support or lack thereof of the people surrounding you when you decided to pursue this avenue? How, was it important to you to have the support of those around you, or were you seem like you're really determined? You're like, okay, that's okay. I'm going to just do this. I'll be over here. How'd that work for you?
The only support that I needed was that of my guides, because I became so close to them that they felt realer than the people around me because of the support level that I had. And everyone told me that I was crazy or it wasn't going to work or this, that, and the other. But I knew in my heart, my mission, right? Because you start remembering it. And once it started coming online, it sounds crazy when it's only something you can experience, when it's within yourself. But then when it starts translating to other people and physical items, etc., then it's like, wow, this is real and it is tangible. And when you do it with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people and they're all having experiences, mind you, I've brought people that are like PhD level psychologists or psychiatrists that teach at universities to have these experiences, or people that have worked at NASA, where these are like trained minds in like psychology or in recognizing like fantasy from reality. And I've brought those types of people to have these experiences that are like, wow, I can't, and so this is where, this is for anyone that wants to have that experience, that believes in it, because part of it is when you are afraid, or this is why they make movies like Alien versus Predator, or these scary movies with aliens, because if you're afraid of them, they won't connect to you, because there are two types of extraterrestrials. There are benevolent and malevolent. And the ones that I'm talking about are higher dimensional, that are non-physical, right? These non-physical beings are of the light. The ones that, if you see a physical UFO or you see a physical being like in 3D, those beings are not the ones you want to be connecting with, because they are in this realm with that we are. And so those are the ones that are typically like malevolent in nature. And so I'm talking about these higher dimensional ones. And so with that, we all have the ability to connect to them, and it comes through the heart and through the law of one, and telepathy works through the heart. And so you have to have that love or that curiosity, right? That playful curiosity is what it takes. If you were shut off to it, they would never connect to you, because fear closes that door. And so this is where these things lie. And I talk a lot about this also in the boot camp. And also I want to share with everybody that I want to give a gift, which is my free ebook. And you can download that at lightbodyblueprint.com. And I'll give you a link for it as well. But that's something where people can start seeing these steps. Like, where's the map, right? Because the boot camp is like the actual, like, walk the path, but like everyone should be able to see this map, see what it's like to be able to activate these things within yourself. That way you can even understand where the stuff comes from,
and have confidence in your ability to connect with those dormant abilities and bring them online. That's just fantastic. So what is your biggest challenge to living your purpose?
My biggest challenge is well, there's been a bunch of different challenges. My biggest challenge is the technical side of it. I'm like the type of guy that can just show up and do the work. But my biggest challenge is reaching audiences through the internet, the technology part, because that's not my calling. And so that has been a big challenge for me when it comes to like, that type of stuff. But I've meet lots of people that can help me, and I get different ways that help me with that. But the other big challenge has been just navigating the human experience after that, right? Because once this awakening process happens, and this is I think what you're actually asking, the technological one, that's just a basic human thing, but navigating your human experience after you've had these types of contact experiences, because it really changes how you perceive reality. That there is like, everyone thinks that we are a body that has a soul, and really we're a soul that has a body, and the soul is much bigger than the body. And understanding that the third dimension is only part of one of 12, and that there's so much more to this whole reality field that is non-physical. Once you've stepped into these arenas or stepped into these spaces or journeyed into these other higher dimensions or these inner realms, once you have that experience, coming back to the mundane 3D is sort of like hard to accept at first, because it seems like a cage. It seems like the movie The Matrix, where you break free from the, like, and then you have to go back to it, and it's like, okay, here I am again, but I can leave at will. But it seems like that you are playing this game that you are this superhero that is like trapped in this little box.
It's restricting, constricting, and it just seems almost, it's so freeing to be on the other side and, be connecting and experiencing so many other things in different realms. And then you come back to this one, it's kind of like, wait a minute. Do I really want to be back here?
The other big challenge for me has been navigating human emotions. So I've only had 5 human incarnations. Every other one has been extraterrestrial. And so they've shown me what those are, but they show me where my soul comes from. And so because of that, I'm new to being a human in the sense of like the reincarnation cycle with people that have been here, thousands and millions of times. So for me, navigating my own human emotions has been a struggle. I can do lots of things with my consciousness, and I feel like I've gained some degrees of mastery over certain things, but I still struggle with my human emotions and different things with friendships, relationships, different things like that, where you have to like have like heavy human emotions. I struggle with that a lot, and so. But what I've realized is, you're not meant to bypass those things. We are here to have a human experience, regardless of where your soul comes from and regardless of your abilities that you can gain from this consciousness evolution. We're here to have a human experience. And with that, taking this higher dimensional stuff and grounding it into your 3D life and being able to look at yourself, self-analyze and work through and process your trauma, process your emotions, that has been difficult for me, but it's something that I've learned, even though I help a lot of people with these things, with shadow work and all these different things, that it seems like my abilities work the best to serve others, but they're forced me to have that human experience. We have to struggle through it and like take the heart, like it's like playing the video game on extra hard, where it's like yeah, you can show up really well in other places, but some spots I really have to like go through the trenches and through the mud, and that's why, because that's my human experience as well. And so, I like to share with people that, you can have all of these gifts and abilities and still have a hard life and still, struggle with emotions and relationships and friendships and conflict and things like that, because we're here for that, right? We chose to come here to have this dense life. And this is why the ETs even love humans, and why all these extraterrestrials are obsessed with humanity, is because humans are the species that have the ability to consciously, at will, shift between duality consciousness and unity consciousness. Duality is the 3D, the mundane, polarized, what we're here on this earth to do. But then when we go into the heart, we can bring our consciousness into these higher dimensional realms where we can access this unity where these beings are of light and gain the joy and the experience and the downloads that comes with, right? We can shift back and forth. The higher dimensional beings, they are up there in unity, and they get to experience duality through us. The ones, the physical ETs that are here in duality with us, they can't connect to the higher dimensional realms. They can only experience that through us as well. And so, they're trying to
really.
So humans are the bridge between the higher realms and the lower realms, and we're the only ones that have the ability to shift between. This is why some of these lower beings try to connect to us almost in a parasitic way, because they want to access our higher dimensional nature to get into these spaces and to connect to other people. And the ones that are in the higher that can't, that don't incarnate physically, they are energetic, they are etheric. Even though you might see them where they seem physical, like they might have features, they are in this higher dimensional realm that is non-physical. And so they get to connect with humans that have the ability to connect with them and be able to be a part of the human experience too, to enrich our lives. And so we are a bridge between these realms.
That's quite profound and a lot to take in when you think about it like that. What do you think, living your purpose, what effect do you think that's had on those around you?
So I've been told that I've had a profound effect on a lot of people's spiritual journey, right? So there are a lot of people, the people that I work with are all either new to the journey, or they have been in this for a long time, where they are already facilitators, healers, psychics, mediums. They're doing this professionally. And when people come in contact with me, I help them develop themselves so they can bring new abilities online and bring new gifts to the table, right? And so a lot of people don't realize that they are more than what they know they are yet. A lot of us don't even know what our purpose is because we haven't even discovered what our true abilities are. Part of it is with the light body. So think of a house. You've got 110 and 220 volts, and the 110 runs all the appliances. The washer and dryer runs off 220. If you don't have 220, you don't run the washer and dryer. Well, most of us don't even know we have a light body, first of all, and or charged it enough to get the light quotient necessary to run the higher level faculties. What it takes for me to facilitate, these group sessions or bring people on these experiences requires that 220. It requires me to be able to hold the space to connect all these different things. And I know that ability, and I have it because of that development. And so a lot of people, once they go through these processes of awakening where they charge the light body, these things start coming online, they realize that they're more than just a healer, more than just a psychic, more than just a medium, that those are just parts of themselves, just like how you have an ears, eyes, nose, and mouth. You don't only taste, you don't only see, you don't only hear, you use all of them together. And once these higher faculties come online, you realize that you've got a lot more to you. And then that's when a lot of people discover their purpose, because once again, you might not know you're a carpenter until you get your hammer and nails, or you might not know you're an electrician until you get the tools. And I tell people all the time, your abilities are the tools to help you achieve your purpose. And so once you know what those are, the purpose becomes very clear in front of you.
Yes, exactly. So what advice would you have to others who are looking for their purpose, but just have no idea how to find it? They haven't found it yet. What advice would you have in helping them?
My advice is, regardless of if you're in the 3D mundane world, you're not going into spirituality, or, you are, my advice is to trust your gut, trust your intuition. Your intuition starts off as your gut, right? So that's different. I'm going to advise everybody to connect with their higher self and learn that internal compass, because that will guide you, and you can use that for everything in your life. It'll enrich your life. It'll guide you. It'll show you where to go, where not to go. But if you're not there yet, follow your gut. And the difference is your gut is your microbiome, right? So they say your gut feeling, it's like your second brain, and the gut is responsive. This is where, like, when you go to a place, you're like, ooh, it feels like spooky, or like you feel danger. That is your body responding to the energy before it happens. And so your gut and your intuition is reactive. So it'll tell you something like in the moment, like, oh, something feels off, or something like that, or it'll lead you somewhere, but because it's reactive. The difference between the intuition and the higher self is reactive versus proactive, right? So the intuition will give you reactivity and will guide you very strongly, but the connection with the higher self is proactive, where you can ask things before they happen and get a response that will help guide you and lead you. And so building that relationship with your higher self is what I advise everybody. And this is a core foundation in the Light Body Bootcamp, because your higher self is the compass. Forget about where you're going. If you don't have the compass or the map, how are you going to get there, right? Building that connection, and your higher self connection is a relationship with the divine. It is the relationship with God. This is an aspect of yourself that is above this duality. This is the version of yourself in these other dimensions, and it's the part of you that's closest to God. And so when you connect with that, you're receiving this divine intelligence through yourself. And what's beautiful about this is everyone has guides, there's angels, there's ascended masters, there's all these different beings, but your higher self is your truest compass. And this is where even people that read the Akashic Records, that's great. I don't teach that, because I go right to the higher self, because that is from you. It's not someone else's story. It's not through a filter distortion. It is your connection. And this relationship, as you build it, it gets stronger. Things that you focus on, they grow. Things that you don't, atrophy. And so as you start this connection and as you grow it, it gets stronger, and it will lead you, it'll guide you in all ways, shape, and form. And so that connection is what I advise everybody to start building, and start getting the guidance from within, and stop relying upon the news, the media, the programming, people telling you what's right or wrong. Start listening within instead of just following external sources of information.
Yes, where your attention goes, energy flows. And that's the garden that you feed, right? So, Jerome, one last question for you. What do you think the world would be like today if the majority of people were living their purpose?
I think it would be much different, because right now we operate in a world where there's a giant control mechanism, and there's all these systems to keep these things in place. Like, our purpose isn't to work at banks and car washes and grocery stores and all these different things. Sure, the systems that we live in require these things because they were designed that way. But if everybody walked in their purpose, there would be first of all, a mass consciousness shift, where I don't know what that would look like per se, but I know that there would be a lot more love and a lot less separation on the earth if everyone was walking in their purpose.
Yes.
People would be a lot more enriched instead of walking around like zombies, where they work their 9 to 5 and they can't wait to get done with their job for the weekend to get that little bit of break before they have to go back to it again. People wouldn't be chasing that. They wouldn't be chasing all of these external things or validation or these things if they felt the way that you feel from walking your purpose. Your purpose will enrich your life. And that alone, if everyone was feeling that way, there would be a lot more of this, unity consciousness and this shared love in the world than there is all of this anger, hate, and separation.
Yes, exactly. Well, you can definitely tell, Jerome, by your energy and your enthusiasm and your passion for life that your purpose has definitely been a positive, a positive influence on you. And you look just happy and healthy and well, and it's amazing. And we thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have this discussion with you, and we wish you well.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you for joining us today. It is our goal to give you the courage to begin to identify your passion and live your purpose for the sake of yourself and for the sake of us all. Over the course of this multi-year collaboration and research project, we have identified patterns and a 7-stage process that many people go through on their way to living their purpose. If you'd like to browse our archive or figure out what stage you're in, head over to holomovement.net/purpose. If you would like to browse our living library of resources, or if you found your purpose and want to contribute what worked for you, head over to lightnet.org/purpose. And as Mark Twain used to say, the most important day of your life is the day you're born and the day you figure out why. You're not alone. We will look forward to helping you on this incredible journey. This has been a collaboration between Holomovement, LightNet, and incredible people like yourself. Special thanks to Good of the Whole. We'll see you next time.